You're listening to PetLifeRadio.com.
Shut up and sit down.
Vegas Rock Dog Radio. Pets, people, pop culture. Let's bring on the host, Sam, the queen of rock and roll dogs.
Hi everyone, I'm so glad you're here listening to this week's show. It's a very, very important week because it is Deaf Dog Awareness Week, and it runs from essentially today for a whole week, and it's a week where we can celebrate deaf dogs, we can raise awareness about deaf dogs and what great companions that they make, and there's no one better than Bernard Lima-Chavez of Dog and His Boy. No, let's do that the wrong. No, that's right. Dog and His Boy. I had to really think about that. Dog and His Boy blog to actually tell you about deaf dogs, why we're going to celebrate them, why they make great companion animals, and other great information. Are you there, Bernard?
I sure am. I'm here in Miami.
I feel like I climbed Mount Everest to get to you today. How's the weather?
It's a little warmer than this time of year, but I think most of the country's feeling that.
Yeah. It still feels like summer here.
Yeah, and I just have to be careful with the dogs outside.
Yeah, and you've been doing a lot of outside stuff, but we'll talk about that later, because that's exciting.
Yeah. I have to be really careful and plan things out with that outside work that we'll talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's an important thing, and I think a lot of people don't think about it. I saw someone yesterday, we were still in the 90s here, and it was middle of the day, and walking a teeny tiny little dog, and its tongue was hanging out, and I thought, oh, come on, people, common sense, but it's not always that common.
No, it's not.
But it is important to know when to go out and when not to go out, and how to plan to go out with your pets in the heat. So, well, I'm really glad that you're on the show this week. This is going to be a regular spot anyway every year, so you know that. That's a
well,
given.
I'm excited. Last year I was on, and it's interesting because number one, I'm super excited to be back, and I'm also excited because I don't know if you remember, but we had a brief conversation last year about man buns and dogs and man buns in general. And I have now grown my hair long enough to do a man bun. But I'm not doing a man bun. I'm going to leave that to Jim.
It's funny because a lot of people on Facebook will say, oh, I hate a man bun. And then I post a picture of Jim and they're like, oh, but it looks good on him.
Yeah.
Stick to your convictions, people.
Yep.
I love long hair. I love the man bun. I must admit, I really like the man bun. It's a cool look. It's hip. And if you're cool, you can carry it off. And I think that's why you do a man bun, because you can do a man bun. So, but I do like your hair long. And I do love how you dress, by the way. I really regret missing you at Blog Pause this year, because I know you all had such a good time. But I had family in town, and we were doing a heck of a lot of bopping around in LA and this, that, and the other. And it was just going to be too difficult. Well, the plan was to actually go. And then as the time went on with the family, I thought, no, this is going to be really hard. And I don't see them often, so I wanted to make sure I, squeezed every minute I could out of them. But I do regret missing you. But it won't be. We'll be together. We will be.
Soon, yes.
Soon. So who started, I have a question for you. Who started Deaf Dog Awareness Week?
I don't really know.
Right.
I wish I knew the answer to that question. I do know that Christina Lee with Deaf Dogs Rock, which is a national not-for-profit, and I know that you know her, and she's been on your show before. She's been a fantastic advocate and has been a great resource of information for me initially when I first adopted a deaf puppy and I had no idea what to do. So I credit her not necessarily for starting it, but certainly for helping getting it out there into the pop culture and increasing awareness of it.
Absolutely. It's a worthy week. I think we have a lot of, National Chocolate Day, this day, that day. But I think this is a very, very important week because I think it's a way to celebrate. So it's not this, oh, pity the deaf dog, which I love that it's not that, because it's that, oh, pity the deaf dog that people then don't want to get a deaf dog. They're like, oh, they're not perfect. But it's a way to actually celebrate and say, these are great companions, and we're going to tell you why they are great companions. And so, so your two dogs, Foster and Edison.
Edison.
Oh, gosh, I had to get my little brain work in there. Both are deaf, correct?
Correct. Those are my two deaf dogs, and then I have two hearing dogs as well.
I didn't know you had 4 in total. You just...
I do.
Quite the family.
And they're all like big bully breed mixes, and so they weigh about a total of 320 pounds.
I don't even want to know what your food bill is. I do not want to.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
I was $200 a month for 3 and totaling a total of £80, which is probably like one of your dogs. Yeah, no, it's a bit much sometimes. I can only imagine. And then, just even regular vet visits. We just finished our corporate taxes. We did an extension on them, and you get to see how much money is spent on everything. And it's a lot of money, but it's valuable information, because I'm going to cover that in the show to tell people what it costs you to have a dog.
It does,
and that's healthy dogs. And a couple of other little things happened in the year. Sometimes you get like the odds, bee sting or whatever, and you take a trip. Mm-hmm. But people don't know the full scope of how much it costs. But $200. I think we spend more on them than we do on our own food. But four bully breeds. It's funny how we're all attracted to certain breeds, aren't we? And certain, little personality traits and stuff. So that's definitely your dog, the breed that you really like. So two deaf, two that can actually hear. Now, were your deaf dogs born deaf, or did they lose their hearing as time went on?
They were both born deaf.
Right.
It was just, congenital issue that happened. So they've never really heard anything. Puppies don't hear for about the first 2 weeks of their life anyways, until their ears open up. And by then, the nerve endings and receptors in the ears have kind of atrophied in congenitally deaf dogs. So they've never really heard anything. I've never done bear testing. Right. Bear testing is a diagnostic test. It's what they use in humans, actually, to test children for hearing.
Oh, same thing.
It's brainstem auditory evocative response, I believe, is what the acronym stands for. I've never done that. I didn't feel a need to. There may be certain decibels or certain frequencies that they can hear, but they can't isolate where the sound is coming from. And so from a practical perspective, they're just deaf dogs. Right. It doesn't really matter to me, like, if they can hear a certain frequency, because even if they respond to something, which is rare, they can't isolate where that sound is coming from.
Right. So when you, like you were saying, you got this puppy and you're like, I don't really know what I'm doing here, and you started to, reach out and read and find some resources and stuff. What was the first thing that you were kind of either told that you need to do this first, or you're like, oh, that's important for me to do this first and learn this? What would you say that is? Or would you say it was signing or some touch training? What would you say that was, that number one thing?
Well, two things really stood out that first weekend when I brought home Edison as a quote-unquote foster. I kind of already had a plan in place. I just needed to get my husband Omar on board with my plan.
Hey, the first step is always get them in the house.
Yeah, and he quickly did. I mean, our first two dogs are named Darwin and Galileo. So,
great names.
Gay men love a theme. And so within 30 minutes, he was Googling like names of important or accomplished or famous deaf, like academics or scientists or something. And he came up with Edison for Thomas Edison, who had hearing loss.
That's
and so that's how that came about.
Isn't that great? A real thought into the name. I mean, that's fantastic.
So two things really stood out that first weekend when I was living in my search engine. I came across Deaf Dogs Rock, and there was a wonderful video by a woman named Alicia McGraw, and she just sat and she just explained all the hand signs that she had and demonstrated that she had taught her dogs. Now, she didn't demonstrate them with her dogs, but the sheer volume of hand signs that she was able to teach her dogs gave me a sense of comfort knowing that I could do this.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I learned real quickly is that I needed to I was going to do hand signs. I didn't really know much about touch training at that point. I've since learned more. And one of the first signs that I learned that I needed to teach my deaf dogs was to watch me.
Right.
when you communicate with the deaf dog, you're using your hands and your body. And if they're not looking at you, they can't hear you because they hear with their eyes.
That's
so
right.
teaching them to watch you and to check in with you is really important. And my deaf dogs do it all the time, especially Edison. We'll be everywhere, and he's constantly just checking back to look at me for information.
That's amazing. I mean, that's adapting, isn't it? That is adapting. That's working together, and to be able to say, "Oh, we're communicating." That's got to feel great, especially the first time.
Well, yeah. When you start teaching the hand signs, and the first time they get it, and you see that light bulb go off in their head, it's an amazing thing. We started with obedience commands. I worked. Though I had trained dogs before, I just really felt like, okay, I have a 10-week-old, 20-pound deaf pit bull dogo Argentino mix who's going to be this big adult unruly dog, so I cannot screw this up.
You can't, can you?
No, and so I reached out to a local trainer who I knew and was very involved with the local veterinary community, very involved with the local rescues and shelters. She does a lot of training work. She also does the training for our local prison dog program.
Oh, how interesting.
So she came over to help with just a couple of sessions, mainly for me to give me a sense that, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
And so they learned obedience commands, and then I began to teach other signs, food, hungry, potty, car, walk.
Gosh, it's great.
I love you, come here, go there, your name, watch me,
It's amazing.
Edison knows about 40 hand signs.
That's a lot. That is a lot of signs. Now, I'm assuming this is something you can do with your dog that isn't deaf.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's, in fact, two things on that. I have begun to teach my hearing dogs hand signs. They passively learned a lot of them because every time at night when I go to feed them, I give the sign for food, and I may say the word for the hearing dogs, but I give the sign, and it's very passive training. You repeat that enough, and the dog begins to associate that hand sign with the word that they're used to hearing. And so my hearing dogs probably know 10 or 12 hand signs at this point, and it's all been passive training. It's just every time I give them a treat or a cookie, I give them the sign for cookie. Every time I give them food, every time I give them water, I just give them the sign. And so they can hear it. And that's important because, dogs are mammals just like people.
Yes.
And they experience a lot of the same physiological changes that humans experience as we get older. And two of those things that are important are vision loss, but specifically in this case, hearing loss. And so beginning to teach your hearing dog some basic hand signs when they can still hear is really important, because as they get older, there is a chance that they're going to lose some hearing, if not all of their hearing. And if you have some hand signs in place, that transition is easier for both the dog and the person.
I think it's a brilliant way to prepare your dog so that, like you say, should it start to go that hearing, they already have this kind of backup. To be able to continue communicating with you. Now, what signs are we looking for though? When a dog is losing its hearing, what are you going to recognize and say, that looks like a sign that something's going on there? What would we look for?
Well, what we find is the signs initially are kind of subtle. I mean, hearing loss in a senior dog, just like in people, is typically very gradual. And so you'll notice oftentimes pet parents of senior dogs who have begun to lose their hearing often approach me feeling bad and guilty and freaked out because they didn't recognize the signs until what they say is it was too late. It's not too late.
Right.
It's just a different approach. Some common things that you might see would be when the dog doesn't wake up when you normally wake up, or if the dog doesn't respond to you calling the name, or other common household signs, sounds that they typically respond to.
Right.
Food being poured into a bowl,
that's a big
grabbing the keys, whatever, hearing, you open up the bag of treats or the canister of treats, things that they hear and they know what that means and they respond to. When they stop responding or don't respond as often, those are some signs that there may be some hearing loss.
And the thing is, I think some people will some people being a little bit in denial, because I mean, my two of my dogs, one's 10, one's 11. They act like they're 2. They're in great shape and everything. But I think some people kind of don't want to. I feel like they don't prepare for their dogs getting a little bit older, and so probably don't want to look for those things. But they're doing a service to the dog to actually really pay attention, because then you can, like you say, you could have already been training some hand signals and assisting your dog. I think a lot of people just go, well, they're old, and I just don't think that's acceptable. You just don't say, well, they're old. Well, no,
Yeah,
do something about it. Help them transition to that, older age group.
You're absolutely right. And I do think there are some people that might be in denial. But to be honest, I think the vast majority of people have just never considered that their dog could be deaf.
Yeah,
Most people just don't know. It's just, and they don't know. So
what you don't know, you don't know.
I spend a lot of, you don't know. And I spend a lot of what I do is education about, number one, yes, deaf dogs exist. And there's lots of reasons that they're deaf. It could be genital, it could be advanced age, it could be medical issues. It could be unintended consequences or side effects of medication or surgical procedures.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of reasons. And so, yes, I think that there are some pet parents of senior dogs who are in denial because it's a hard thing to face.
Yeah, it really is.
But I think most just never occur to them. And once they do, then it's very eye-opening for them. And then they begin to reach out and look for information.
They do. I mean, I was reading that a lot of the dogs, when they start to lose their hearing a little bit, become a little bit more of a Velcro dog, as we like to say. They're a little bit closer to you, because I would think that it impacts confidence at the same time. Would you say the same thing? Or maybe a little confusion, like, ooh, what's going on?
Yeah, I think that especially a dog that is a senior dog or a dog that was hearing and has begun to lose his hearing, they do compensate in a lot of ways. And some dogs will become much more in tune with what the other dogs are doing and will follow them.
Right.
That does happen. What I find more often is that those dogs become a little more Velcro dogs, as you said.
Yeah.
Where they're much more aware of where we are and what we're doing.
I see.
And that can sometimes be a sign of hearing loss, as if you leave the room and the dog doesn't see you and suddenly kind of freaks out looking for you.
That
can be another sign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's totally a good thing to look for. So sometimes I guess you would see a role reversal maybe with the dogs in the family, that the ones that can hear, and then the ones that can't hear, that there might be a little role reversal. They may have been like the top dog, and all of a sudden, oh, I don't hear so well. I'm going to, follow so-and-so around. They can hear.
It does happen.
Yeah.
It's actually a friend of mine who's a blogger. We wrote a couple of blog posts on each other's blog. And she has a senior dog named Emmett, and she has a younger dog named
Maggie?
Cooper. We're talking about Maggie Martin with Oh My Dog blog.
I love her.
And her senior dog, Emmett, was always, he accepted Cooper, but they were like never best buddies. But once Emmett began to lose his hearing, they formed a stronger bond. And so he tends to take a lot of cues from Cooper now, which is which really speaks to exactly what you said, which is sometimes there is a change in the relationship with other dogs in the home. So they really do compensate in many different ways. And that's just one.
It's a little bit like when we get older and all of a sudden we become the parent to our parents.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? All of a sudden you're like, oh, I need to look after you. We need to change things around a little bit. But I don't think a lot of people think about, well, they don't want to think the dogs are getting older, someone says, oh my gosh, your dog's all gray. I said, no, she's got sparkles on her face. They're sparkles, But I think preparing them for that is one of the loveliest things you could ever do for your dog, because the transition is not going to be difficult should you lose some hearing or,
right.
that kind of thing.
And that transition, typically what I find is that it's harder for the pet parent than it is for the person.
Yeah, I know.
Than the dog. The dogs, it's like with humans, it's a gradual change, so they compensate slowly and they, those changes aren't always noticed right away. It's harder for people that have never experienced living with a deaf dog and communicating with one. That can be the challenge, and that's why I've been encouraging people with hearing dogs to begin to teach at least some basic hand signs. And even you find that when people work with dog trainers, when they first adopt a dog, as a puppy or as an adult, they'll teach basic hand signs to go with that verbal command for sit or come or say or down or whatever. And if you maintain those hand signs, I mean, we just get lazy because we depend on our voice for everything.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But dogs communicate primarily with body language. So if you just maintain using that hand sign for sit or stay or down, they already have those skills.
Yeah.
And so the transition is much easier because you've got a foundation to build on.
So do you still, well, of course, you've got hearing dogs as well. So would you recommend for anyone that gets a deaf dog to still use verbal commands with their visual cues as well?
I do all the time. And I talk to my deaf dogs all the time. Number one, I'm a human and we depend on our voice.
And we talk,
but also, when we talk, our facial expression changes, our body language changes. And so this just goes back to the fact that dogs communicate with the world in a different way. They use their bodies in lots of different ways to communicate. They read other dogs' body language to understand and to communicate with each other. They read our own body language.
Yeah. I mean, it's true.
So I talk to them all the time.
You can you can make a move. You can make a certain move when you have an intention to go on a dog walk, and you've not said anything, but that move.
And they know. They know.
They're so intuitive. I mean, it's quite amazing. It really.
I've gotten really good at, especially if I'm going to be doing some of the outdoor work with Edison.
Yeah.
I'm not taking everybody. So I've gotten really good at like breaking up my routine so my routine doesn't give me away. But what always gives me away, and when Edison immediately jumps and runs to the doors when he sees my camera, because he knows exactly what's about to happen once he sees that camera.
They are so smart. I mean, that recent study that came out about dogs understanding language and your tone, your intonation, you know, when it matches together, they totally understand what you're saying. And so sometimes I'm not sure people give animals the credit that they deserve. They're probably far more intuitive than we are.
I think they are too.
I mean, we seem to always like, you know, people say, oh, try and, for your dog to understand you. I'm like, no, I think we need to understand our dogs more, in all honesty. I think they've got it down. They know exactly what's going on. They know when you're trying to coax them in, when you're going, oh, I'm trying to leave the house. Come on, everybody come in. And they're like, yeah, all right, lady, let's have a little fun with her.
And, I've worked with dogs for many, many years. I'm a veterinary technician.
I know. This is what I love about you. You are just so, oh my God, you're just such a wealth of information because of your experience and your qualifications. You're the perfect person for all of this stuff,
Yeah, and so I had worked with dogs in these different roles as a technician working in shelter medicine. And working with deaf dogs was probably helped me in many ways that I still can't completely communicate, because it's forced me to get in tune with, when I begin to use my body to communicate, I become much more in tune not only with my own body and my own body language, but their body language. Yeah. And so, and that's a skill that just kind of becomes second nature after a while. And it applies not only to deaf dogs, it applies to hearing dogs or blind dogs. It applies to just dogs in general, because I'm much more in tune with what my body is saying to them and what they're telling me with their bodies.
And I can only think that deepens your bond with your dog. Tremendously. It's got to do.
I adore all of my dogs, but I have a different kind of deeper bond with my deaf dogs, because it's a silent world. I can talk all I want, but really what I'm communicating when I speak is with my face or my body, and it's my hands. It feels very intuitive, and it's probably just picking up on those subtle signs and things that each of us are saying to each other, and both of us listening to each other.
Yes, my gosh, people in relationships could learn a lot from having a deaf dog, wouldn't you think? Because you have to work on that. You have to say, we're in this together to make this work. I would think that would be a good learning experience for anyone. Hey, well, listen, on that note, let's take a very, very quick break. We're going to listen to some words from our sponsors because I have a question about my dogs getting older, even though they have their hearing. And I want to get your opinion on it. So just hang on in there. You listen to Vegas Rock Dog Radio. Lisa, I'm your host, the queen of rock and roll dogs. And we'll be right back.
Vegas Rock Dog Radio. Pets, people, pop culture.
It's designerpetsweaters.com. Hand-knitted designer sweaters for your precious pup or cool cat. Beautiful couture patterns for your pets, including custom-knitted formal wear, casual wear, yachting, and even sports-themed. Many designer pet sweaters include feathered tammy hats, top hats, and a lot of sparkle. Each sweater includes leg loops, front paw sleeves, and leash opening. Visit designerpetsweaters.com to order your four-legged fashions today. Your pets will stay warm for the winter and be runway ready. Large or small, we fit them all. designerpetsweaters.com.
When I adopted her, she was a mess. Scabs, itching, licking, missing fur, hot spots, a thin, dull coat. So I take the dog to the vet for the standard run-of-the-mill tests and treatments. No results. I hear your advertisement on the radio.
DINOVITE.com.
859-428-1000.
So I get the 5-pound box of Dynavite and the Lico Chops within a 4-week total. Instead of a German Shedder, I have a German Shepherd. Sheba is 105 lean pounds of shiny, smooth, happy dog for life because she gets fed Dynavite. And the results, they're just incredibly outstanding. And she loves it. When you rescue a dog, you have to do the right thing. You've got to feed them right for life. Do the Dynavite. Dynavite for life.
859-428-1000.
DINOVITE.com.
Hi, I'm Dana Humphrey, the founder of Whitegate PR. We have been specializing in PR and marketing in the pet industry for over 10 years. If you have a pet product or service you would like to promote, give us a call. We can help create awareness for your brand on TV, radio, magazines, newspapers, and blogs. Feel free to reach me directly at 619-414-9307 or learn more on our website at whitegatepr.com or follow us on Facebook.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Vegas Rock Dog Radio. Pets, people, pop culture.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm glad you stayed with us. So just before the break, and here speaking with me today is Bernard Lima-Chavez. He is a wealth of information when it comes to deaf dogs, not only just the training of them, understanding of them, but also their health as well, and, why. There are many reasons why dogs are deaf. And we were just talking about them, deaf dogs transitioning into the senior phase and hearing dogs into the senior phase and how signing can make such a difference in actually communicating. But I do have a question for you, Bernard. Are you still there?
Sure. I absolutely am.
So as I said, to my dogs, Galaxy's 11, Thornton is 10. Both have great hearing, although sometimes I think Galaxy might be a bit selective.
Mm-hmm.
She's always been quite the, I'm not taking everything what you're saying at face value. She's very much that kind of dog. So she'll say, let me think about that. No, she's quite a character. But what I've noticed as they've got older, they've become more scared of noises they were never scared of. So, for example, people get mad at me because I don't hear my phone ring. That's because the ringer is off. Because my Jack Russell is frightened to death of the ringer on my phone. FaceTime freaks both of them out. And then they never were like this when they were younger. And recently, Thornton, she shook from head to toe. Jim was preparing some of his sheet music in a binder that has one of those snap clips things that makes a lot of noise. And she jumped on my lap. I didn't know at first. I'm like, something scared her to death. And Jim sat next to me putting his music together and clipping and unclipping this binder and shuffling paper. And it absolutely terrified her. So obviously I sent Jim away. Get in the studio. Yeah. Get away.
Go away.
I got to this music. I'm like, no, she's scared. So off we went. And so that's something that I've noticed in them as they've got older. And obviously, a deaf dog can't hear. What kind of signs do they exhibit as they get older if noise is not one of them? What kind of things do you see? Do you see just maybe a change in confidence or anything like that, or just nothing? Because noise seems to be a big thing for my lot right now.
Yeah, and with your dogs, I mean, it could be a lot of things, but one thing that it could be is the beginnings of hearing loss, and they're not necessarily able to associate that sound with something they're familiar or isolate where it's coming from. I mean, that's one possibility of many. And in terms of deaf dogs that are becoming senior dogs, I would say just any of the other things that senior dogs are prone to, they're prone to, except they've already lost their hearing or never had it. So it could be vision, it could be, osteoarthritis, it could be any number of other things. I mean, I tend to think of deaf dogs in a hierarchy, and I learned this from Christina Lee from Deaf Dogs Rock. Mm-hmm. First and foremost, when you're dealing with a deaf dog, you're dealing with a dog. So everything goes along with being a dog and their behavior and how they live the world and interpret the world and experience the world. First of all, it's the dog. Second, it's the breed. So you're going to have, unique breed-specific behaviors. I've got bully dogs, so they eat rocks, they roll in the mud. They're always wrestling, they're pibbling. It's awesome. I love it. But other dogs, different breeds, would have different types of behaviors or prone to certain medical conditions. And third, there's the deafness. And so a deaf dog that gets older, it's really just goes back to being that deaf dog and being that dog and being that breed. I don't think. I mean, I guess if they have some hearing, that hearing could be further diminished as they get older.
I see.
It just really depends on each dog, I think.
Now, we're going to lighten the mood a little bit. So, what are the advantages of a dog being deaf?
Oh, there's a lot, especially with a deaf puppy. Okay, see, this is the thing about puppies. Puppies are great, but they're an awful lot of work.
They are.
And I did 4 straight years of puppies. I got one dog, it was a puppy. I got it to be an adult. I then brought home another puppy. So I did this for 4 years. Like every time I got one to be an adult, like with an adult brain, it was no longer, like eating the remote control.
Yes.
But I'm also kind of cranky in the morning. So when I wake up, I get up very early and I want my coffee and I want quiet time. With a deaf dog, they don't hear you get up. So you don't have to deal with them right away. Like I don't have to deal with getting them outside and all of that. Whereas with a hearing puppy, you really do, because the minute you wake up, they are ready to go.
They are. This morning, I just, let's say we didn't get in bed till super late, or early this morning as it was. And then I could hear Mr. Twix. I thought, he's shuffling around. Next thing you know, he's launched himself onto me on the bed. Plop right on me. The first thing I do, Bernard, you're going to laugh, is I protect my boobs from him. Because he sure wants to...
Probably a good thing.
He wants to jump all over them in the morning. So I hear him moving. I'm like, okay, cross my arms over my chest, and I'm sure lots of people will relate to that. What are the bits and pieces?
Yes.
Because they don't care. They just want to get on bed and jump on top of you. But yeah, I have intentions sometimes, which is, I'm the same as you, Bernard. I love to be very sociable with people, and I'm very, very, very chatty. But in the morning, don't talk to me at all. And I have these intentions. I lay in bed and I'll get up, I'll make a coffee, I'll sit on the patio, check my emails. No, it's dictated by the dogs who can hear me move in the morning. You're right. You're right.
That's a great benefit. And there's other ones. Like I don't worry about like fireworks with my deaf dogs. I mean, I have one of my hearing dogs. He was very much abused as a puppy, and so he has a lot of anxiety around fireworks. So he gets herbal supplements, like when we're leading up to events where there's going to be a lot of fireworks.
Yeah, nice.
And you form they become very. I find deaf dogs become very attached to their person, and I have one dog that's really kind of bonded with me. The second deaf dog is bonded more with Omar. I mean, they're bonded with both of us, but I mean, Edison has picked me and Foster has picked Omar, and they're very intimate. They're very touch. They like touch, and so they won't just follow. They'll want to be on the couch but they'll want to be next to you. They'll, even if it's just like a paw or just a slight brush, they like the constant touch and being connected with people or the person that they feel most comfortable with. And that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I couldn't think anything more lovely than that.
It's a wonderful thing.
That's amazing. So I have questions for you about anyone. Well, as with anything in the animal world, and you and I both know this, there are so many myths out there. And people still perpetuate them, and it does make me crazy at times. I'm like, oh my gosh, people are still saying this, and it makes me crazy. But what myths would you say are out there that deter people and put them off from adopting a deaf dog? What would you say is the number one thing that people say, and you're like, that's not the case with deaf dogs, but let me help you with that, so that you're not put off from getting a deaf dog? What would you say some of those myths are?
I think there's a couple. I think the first thing that frightens people about adopting a deaf dog is they don't know how to communicate, and it scares them. And they think it's much harder than it really is. It's not harder to live or train a deaf dog. It's just different. That's one. Some myths would be that they're aggressive, and they're not. I mean, some individual dogs may be based on life experiences, those sorts of things. Yeah. That deaf dogs are stupid and can't learn. One thing that's always disturbing is, when I worked in the shelter, there were many times people would surrender a dog and they say, well, I just can't take him anymore because, he's a year and a half and he's big and he's untrained and he doesn't listen and he's a bad dog. And within 5 minutes of medically assessing and caring for this animal and getting him ready, I realized the dog was deaf. The dog wasn't a bad dog. The dog didn't learn any training because the dog couldn't hear. And it go back to people not understanding that dogs can be deaf. Those are a couple of myths that I think really stand out. And people are, when I have conversations with people, they're always amazed that my dogs are deaf, and they're always amazed at how much they learn and how calm and well behaved they are.
That's it. It's those myths that do put people off. I mean, like a three-legged dog, or like a friend of mine, her dog has no eyes. And lots of people. He came.
Is that Odie's eyes?
Yes, I hung out with him yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it's funny because Alicia, his mom, we were friends on social media. She didn't live here, and then she went to Blow Paws in Vegas, which was so much fun. And then she was like, I like it here. I'm going to move out here. So she actually moved not far from where I live. And so yesterday,
oh, that's wonderful.
We had a little get together yesterday, and he just come from the groomers. He's known for the feather in the hair. He always has a.
Oh gosh.
But then he had some, I call it bum bling. It was like a little stick-on little like butt tattoo that was all blinged out. He is a funny dog. I posted the cutest picture of his hair yesterday, and he looked like Hamilton, George Hamilton.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I follow Odie's Eyes on Instagram, and I don't know Alicia, but I'd like to meet her and have a conversation with her because I think she's doing amazing work, and Odie is such an awesome dog.
He is. He came to her with eyes, but he was in so much pain with those eyes, and couldn't see, and it was just he transformed once those eyes were gone. He could start to live, without those eyes, and that's why she does his hair in those cute styles and stuff.
Yeah.
She had like the comb over the other day. Then she had I think she called it a side man pony the other day. So she's funny how it's funny. Yeah. The posts are funny. I like the stories are told through the hashtags.
Yeah.
That's what I really, really like. And she's done amazing. I'm so glad she moved here because we have become great friends and, get to hang out. And he's quite the dog. And everybody comes up to him. And we had a lot of people yesterday come up to us at the coffee shop. And she's like, here's a card and here's a little pin badge. On Instagram. Oh, we love him.
Yeah, Odie's great. Love Odie.
But they train in a certain way, and they
probably
upon the fact that he has no eyes at all.
No, it's not a disability. It's just adapting. The dogs adapt very well. I mean, I saw this many times in when I was practicing as a technician. Dogs that had like a leg amputation or They don't. Dogs do not have pity parties. They do not take to their bed like Scarlett O'Hara. Like they just get up and they adapt and they move on. They just they're not like me. Like I have to go have a little pity party in my bed for a while. But dogs don't do that. They just get up and they just figure they adapt. So
they like you said, they don't have a pity party. It's more us that get stuck, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We get really
on all of these issues. It's all about obviously we're humans, so we're viewing it from our perspective. So it's harder for us, whether it's deafness or blindness or both. I mean, you see that a lot with people that are irresponsibly breeding like double merles together. Yes. Those puppies are frequently deaf or blind or both. Mm-hmm. And when you have a deaf or blind puppy, it's a whole new set of challenges because you can't use your hands to communicate. So then you have to do touch training. And touch training is where you're touching the dog in a certain location or moving your hands or fingers in a certain way to communicate what you want them to do. And so it's a different way of communicating. But they do fine.
Can you explain what a double merle is for the listeners? Because not everybody knows what a double merle is. And sometimes they'll see a double merle and they think it's the most amazing thing, but they have no idea really what happens as a result of that.
Merle is a color pattern. It's a genetic color pattern. You see it frequently in Australian Shepherds or Border Collies and some other breeds. And when it's a dominant genetic trait. And so when you breed a merle to a merle, one of the possible side effects of that merle gene is blindness or deafness. And so when you breed a merle to a merle, that's called a double merle. Yeah. And the chances of their hearing or vision being impaired is pretty significant. About 25% of the puppies will have some degree or complete vision loss, hearing loss, or both. Wow. And so it's just irresponsible breeding. Responsible breeders don't do that. They'll breed a merle with Australian Shepherds. I used to have a lot of Australian Shepherds, and so you would breed a merle with, let's say, a brown tri or a black tri. You would never breed two merle puppies together.
Do you think they breed sometimes just because they do look gorgeous?
They're gorgeous. A merle dog is gorgeous. And they probably do, but they just don't understand the genetics because they're not responsible breeders. Right. And one thing that we're trying to do in the deaf dog community is begin to work with breeders where they have dogs that are throwing deaf puppies and work with them to let us help that dog. We're not going to share where the dog came from. I mean, a lot of the breeders are concerned because they don't want their reputation to be ruined if their dog suddenly throws a deaf puppy. So working with the breeders to educate them, whether it's, not breeding two merles together, or if you've got a dog that keeps throwing puppies that are deaf, to stop breeding that dog and let us help those puppies. And that's a long, slow process, and that's a conversation, it's meeting breeders where they're at, and it's open
to it, are they? I mean, because like you say, they don't want anyone to say get out about what happened. They've got this high percentage of dogs that have been born this way. It is definitely a conversation, but you know what? I think it's fantastic. Because a lot of people do complain about the terrible breeders. And it's all well and good complaining, but if we're not trying to build some kind of relationship, like you say, in a conversation where they feel like they can trust you, and then they are more open to the information that you give them, some guidance. I think it's a really good thing. It's a little bit like the Beagle Freedom Project.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It was all about we don't want animal testing, but then the next step was let's see if we can get these labs to actually release these animals after the testing so that we can actually get them adopted.
And that was massive, and that's a government thing. When I had no idea until I was in vet tech school, and I had to do like a laboratory animal medicine class and lab working with these animals that are living in labs and being tested on. I had no idea until that moment that as much as a lot of these organizations or universities or companies would like to then find another place for these animals to live, the government regulations are so stringent that they frequently aren't allowed to by law, which is ridiculous, so it's nice to see people taking the horns on that issue, and we're beginning to see progress. It's such a nice thing to see.
It really, really is. And like you say, and just doing the same thing with breeders that are possibly putting out deaf dogs, or affecting the ones that are affected by vision as well, and to start to build those relationships. It's fantastic. It really, really is fantastic. I was saying on last week's show, sometimes you get a little bit further with a little bit of sugar than vinegar. We can all get mad.
Absolutely.
We all get mad. I mean, you and I see every day that's pretty horrific every day, and we see the worst of the worst people, and we see the best people ever.
Yep.
It can be very up and down, can't it? Very emotionally. I mean, sometimes, yesterday I had a day I was like, I don't need to see a lot of this stuff. I'm just scrolling past some of this. And I took a break from Facebook last week. I kind of pre-scheduled a lot of stuff because you kind of have to do that when you, in the arena that we're in, we see stuff. And how many times do people tag you and send you stuff? Have you seen this?
All the time.
Like,
it's stuff that I can't do anything about it,
I know. It's true. And it's sometimes it's like, if you've seen it, trust me, I've seen it. This is the world that we're in right now. But to build those relationships and actually see some progress is wonderful. It's so, it gives you a lot of hope that, we can start changing people's views. But like you say about the government, it's true. And sometimes these laws get put in place by people who have no clue what they're talking about.
Or it's done in a way, and it's just not there's unintended consequences that were not intended. You know what I mean? I think it's nothing is black and white in this world, especially when it comes to animals and animal welfare and government and laws. There's very little is black and white. It's all shades of gray. So.
It really, really is. I mean, you can just put something up about training, and who knows? You've got 100 people on there who've got a different opinion of everything. Mm-hmm. And I tend to look at things from the sidelines a lot on those Facebook posts. I'm like, I'm not getting involved in that. These people are a little, out there sometimes. But a conversation is definitely. It's valuable, and just this show in itself, what we're doing today, is valuable to anyone that goes, I've never even thought of, a deaf dog, or was always put off by a deaf dog. Oh, no, you actually do have to approach it in a certain way. You just don't get the dog and go, okay, let's see if this works out. And so I think you give people a lot of confidence to be able to say, you know what, I am going to go and adopt a deaf dog, and change their perception of them, and hopefully get rid of some of those myths that we talked about as well. Now, do you find that most people are surprised that when you go out with your deaf dogs that they are actually deaf? Are they just surprised? Are they just like, no way, they're so fabulously trained, this is amazing?
Yeah, I get that a lot. One thing that I've done, because awareness and education is so important to me, and that involves a conversation with people. I mean, you can do it online, you can do it on social media, you can do it in a blog post, you can do it in an article, but the one-on-one conversations are always a really great way to help educate people, and it's very rewarding. So I frequently will be out, and the whistlers clap their hands or call the dog, and I have to tell them that the dog is deaf and he can't hear you. And that's that's a great way to start a conversation. They're like, really, and we can have the conversation. And then this year I decided to make my dogs work for their supper, and I ordered some Duty Pack vests from Duty Pack, and each of my dog has one, and it has my logo and my website URL, and it's got their name. And for the ones that says that they're deaf, it has their name and says that I'm deaf. So they're like walking billboards for me. And amazing. Some people, don't read it, and so we still have a conversation. And some people, it's a conversation starter because they see it and they're suddenly very interested and they have a question. So I make them work for me now.
And you know what? You don't have to pay them in treats.
I can pay them in anything. An ear scratch, they're happy with.
They'll be happier than anything. Do you ever do any meet and greets with your dogs at any of these pet events that go on? Do you get a chance to, maybe be at a booth and people get to meet and hand out information? Have you ever done that? Because I think you need to do some appearances, Bernard.
Well, I'm starting to work on that. I've gotten a little more involved with some of our local Miami community, and working with some of the local businesses and brands and companies that are putting on events. So actually going to be making a couple of like unofficial appearances. There's an official appearance for a launch of a new product that is a Miami-based company. And so I'm working more towards that as Edison has become a little more well-known in the Miami area, certainly more well-known than I am.
They always get more famous than us, always. They're the ones that get endorsements.
and that's the way it should be. Like this is all about Edison. When I started my blog, it was a hobby, and it was a way that I could keep my promise to Edison to help his people any way that I could. So it's all about him. That's why the blog is Dog and His Boy. I mean, it's about Dog. I'm just the people. I'm just behind the scene.
You totally fulfilled that because, it's no longer a hobby. I know that for sure. You've written for Victoria Stilwell, correct?
Yes, I write for Victoria Stilwell. I've written for Huffington Post. I write regularly for Pet MD now.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
You see, so gosh, isn't it? I love those kind of stories where someone says, I did this out of a passion, or it was something I really liked and it was a hobby, and then you're like, wow, look what this blew up into. This is massive. And you're one of the few guys that are actually in like the pet blogging world.
Guy
I know.
There's and what's interesting about that is that there's like the male lifestyle bloggers, like dad bloggers, like are really like coming into their own. They're really developing like a niche, and they're really starting to be successful. And so I'm hoping that men will begin to share their experiences and their life with their dogs or their cats or their gerbils or their birds, whatever their pets are, in the pet space, because men have a different perspective and a different relationships. And I think that male voice is really important.
I do. I hope it grows. But isn't it nice kind of being the only one, though?
Well, I'm not the only one. There's a couple of other ones that I really like. But there's not quite as many as I would like to see. But that's okay. That's okay.
It's probably like the world of rescue as well. It's a very high percentage of women.
Yes.
And not a lot of men. And I'd love to see a lot more men in animal rescue.
And I think that's changed. I mean, you even see that within the veterinary community. I mean, the vast majority of, I'm pulling numbers out. I'm making numbers up here. You see a much higher percentage of female veterinarians coming out of vet school and working now than you ever used to see of men. People have asked me about that. I'm like, I don't really know why. I'm wondering if there's a level of, because there's a nurturing component and a caretaking component, and women are raised differently than men are in this culture, and men aren't raised necessarily to be nurturing or to be caretakers or caregivers, I guess is a better way to put it.
It's quite exciting to see these shifts happening. I was at the vet this week with Galaxy, and I have a holistic vet. She's fantastic on nutrition. And so I was talking to the girl at the front desk, and she said, I said, we were talking about nutrition itself and how people are really focusing on it now, realizing that, real food is good for your pets if you do it the right way. And I said, there's a shift. And she went, yes. She says, I see it. She says, of course, I work in a veterinary office. She says, there's a massive shift. She says, I've got more and more clients coming in saying, can you tell me about coconut oil? Can you tell me about this? Is this good for my dog? Is this good for my cat? So I think there's a nice big move happening, and I love it. I like to see when there's a shift for the better, and people embracing, the fact that our pets, their nutrition is as important as our own, which in my case, mine eat better than we do anyway.
Right.
They're healthier than us too. And I love to see these shifts. I like to see the shift in the veterinarian world where now we're seeing more women in this. It's great. I just love to see. I mean, it shows that we're not stuck. We're not stuck.
Right.
We're moving forward. We're learning more. I mean, there was never much research into animals, really, in all honesty, for many, 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 many years. And now they're studying, like, say, the language, and do they understand what we say? I think it's brilliant. It's like, yay, we're focusing on, on animals. And I really, really enjoyed to see those changes.
It's awesome to see, not only like the effort and the development of like pet products, whether that's food or toys or medication or medical approaches, embracing more holistic, natural things. The research that's being done. Last year, I discovered a academic PhD who's actually studying deaf dogs.
Oh, you're kidding!
And I've had a couple conversations with her. we did a blog post about myths about deaf dogs and pulling from a study that she published. And I've had some conversations with her around touch training because she also works with blind and deaf dogs. And so I've been learning some stuff from her about touch training so I can share some more information about that. So it is, I mean, you're seeing it across the board, whatever, part of the pet segment it is, there's progress being made, and it's awesome.
Well, I think that they're also recognizing that we all love animals, and more people are getting cats and dogs and, ferrets and what have you. They're not going away. We like them in our lives. We like them as part of our family. So why not study them so that we can understand them better, so we can do better by them? That's why I really like about all this new research. Now, you've been doing you've had quite the summer, and I tell you something, what you did this summer really, really appealed to me, because there's nothing better than great-looking dogs and fantastic street art, and you put it together. There's nothing better than that. So you've had a summer of street art. Now, is it with Edison that you've done most of your photographs with?
Yes, I do most of the photographs with Edison, and I'm obsessed with deaf dogs, but I'm also obsessed with street art.
It just so appealed to me. I've just really enjoyed seeing those photographs, and I think it needs to become something else.
If you look, I'm not an art history person, but I read a few articles about how post-graffiti street art is one of the most important current developments in the art world. And I happen to be really fortunate that there's several neighborhoods here in Miami where not only is there a lot of street art, but it's actually encouraged. And the street artists are being commissioned to do buildings. And there's an elementary school where the entire outside of the building is street art. And it's amazing work. It's not... Wow. I like graffiti as well. I mean, graffiti, and I like stenciling. And I like, when people are embracing different types of different medium when they're doing street art. But I happen to be fortunate that there's so much of it in a neighborhood here in Miami called Wynwood. And it's so big now that there's actually tourist companies that bus tourists in to the neighborhood, and then they can do little walking tours or Segway tours and see all the amazing art. Literally, it's like almost every square inch of space is filled. And I can go every single weekend and shoot hundreds of photos, and I can just keep going back. And so it really combined, two passions of mine, and it allowed me to express a different side of my personality that I don't really express so much in the blog or in articles. When you're writing for somebody else, you can't use salty language, which I'm a fan of salty language. So I can do a little bit of edgier stuff because it's Instagram and the audience there.
I agree.
And it's been amazing. I've gotten such a great response. I'm proud of it. I'm excited to see where it's going to go. I would love to figure out a way to do a road trip to some other cities, and if I could find a sponsor that would
You need a car sponsor. You need a flight sponsor.
No, I can't fly because Edison is 92 pounds.
Too big.
So it's a driving road trip. But if
you need a limo and the limo driver, that's what you need.
And I figured the first time would be just a couple of cities, and I know a couple of cities that have some good street art and some great art communities that would be a great place to go.
I just love where this is going, because this can be all part of your advocacy too, in such a cool way. Oh my gosh!
Because I still talk about deaf dogs. I talk about deaf dogs in the post, and when I know the artist, I tag the artist, and I always have a disclaimer that if you know the artist, if I don't happen to know, if they don't tag their work, then I can't give them credit on Instagram or Pinterest or wherever I'm sharing the photo, primarily on Instagram. But I like to support the artist and give them credit for the work and get their work out there. For me, it just all fit together, and it's really become a big part of my branding and my identity.
A sociable thing to do on the weekend with your dog. I mean, it's just, you're together. It's great.
It's awesome. I mean, now I do have to be careful because it is Miami. We have two seasons, hotter, hotter, or wetter, wetter. And our summer is going a little bit longer. And so I do have to be very cognizant of the temperature just so Edison doesn't overheat. I've never had any problems, but, I'm a technician, so I'm really, really cautious. And I always make sure we have water. His favorite water, just so you know, is a Trenta ice water from Starbucks drive-through. That's his preference.
I love it. You're just my kind of pet parent.
So went out of our way. We stop at Starbucks, go through the drive-through, and so then building relationships with local brands and local companies. There's a great company that is doing home cooked. They're opening a business. They're opening their storefront that should open probably in a month or so. It's a canine kitchen. It's all fresh prepared food under the guidance of a veterinarian nutritionist called Dishes for Dogs. And you can buy the food fresh. You can actually buy it frozen, and you just defrost it.
Oh, we need to open one.
The cool thing, though, is that you can also buy the recipe card. Nice. So they're not trying to keep it. So they will sell you the recipe card with the vitamin and mineral packet that goes with it. And what's awesome is that then they're partnering with local businesses. So there's a great cafe here in Wynwood, Miami, where all of this street art is. That's not the only place, but that's where I go a lot of the time. Yeah. And a local cafe now has a doggy menu, and it's Dishes for Dogs. And so I can go there, I can get my coffee, I can get him some, healthy, nutritious, fresh prepared food just as a snack, just something to do. And then I buy it, and I'm a rotational feeder, so, once a week or so they get that in their regular food. So it's been a great way to connect with the local community and connect with local businesses, and I'm loving it. And the photos, I'm really excited because they're bright and they're colorful, and
they are. I would buy note cards with those photos on the front.
Really?
Oh, I totally would. I think you need to have an art gallery night. Someone needs to.
Well, I've been thinking about where to take this to the next level, because it's kind of becoming a thing. And so I'm not quite sure what the next step is, but I definitely have some plans that I'm mulling over and kind of push it to the next level.
Oh, I think there's going to be something really great come out of it. I mean, I love all the pictures. It's funny, my sister just did a shoot downtown in our hometown in Sheffield in England, and it's all that kind of stuff. Very, very cool, very individual. A lot of it is very sort of social commentary of what's happening in the day right now.
Yes.
Which I really enjoy that. And you know who else has a great street art thing? And I wish we'd have had this conversation before. Blog pause last year, but Nashville has some amazing street art.
They do.
It's a proper. I think it's a city paid program.
Yeah, it's
artists, and I love it.
Yeah,
I just really love it.
I mean, street art is really moved beyond. If people are not familiar, obviously you can check out my Instagram account, Dog and His Boy, on Instagram at Dog and His Boy. I would love it because you'll begin to see it's true art. It's not just, stenciling is great. I love stenciling. And I had a little idea last night about how I could promote myself with some stenciling. Excuse me. But it's true art. And it's not related to deaf dogs, but I just took a trip to Paris for 2 weeks. I love Paris. I can't take my dogs because they can't fly, or they can fly in cargo and they don't fly cargo.
They don't. Yeah, exactly.
There is an incredible amount of street art in Paris, and they're really using all sorts of mediums. They're using paint, they're stenciling, but they're doing glass mosaic. They're using glitter. They're using wheat pasting. They're doing plaster work. They're attaching objects to buildings. It's awesome. I have so many photographs from Paris. I'm actually considering starting a companion Instagram account where it's featuring just the street art, because even when I'm shooting Edison or Foster here in Miami, oftentimes I can't get all of the work in the shot in the photo, or it's a high photo that's higher up on the building and I can't get the dog in it. Yes. And so another way just to kind of support my interest and street art and support the artist.
Oh, I think this is...
I'm thinking about it.
I think it's going to go really, really far. Gosh, you know what? Isn't it great that we got to cover so many things today? It's been...
We did. We talked a lot of stuff.
Now, we've talked about, of course, this is a great week to celebrate, deaf dogs. But, of course, anyone that's running a rescue, any rescue, we all know it's difficult, if the finances don't come in. So... where can people donate to deaf dogs so they can continue the great work that they do, some of these rescues? What's your favorite?
My favorite is Deaf Dogs Rock. It's a national not-for-profit started by Christina and Chris Lee. They are a 501c3. They do a lot of different things. They sponsor dogs from shelters or bad home situations that are facing euthanasia in the shelter. Into private rescues or shelters that do not euthanize for time or space.
That's great.
I don't use the term no-kill, but that's essentially what I mean by shelters that don't euthanize for time or space. They support transport programs to get dogs from one part of the country to the next part of the country. They'll pay for medical care. Yeah. They have paid for training. They do a lot of educational work. It's just an amazing organization, and it is a 501c3. So your money is being used in a responsible way to help as many deaf dogs as possible. They also have a great catalog of deaf dogs that are available for adoption throughout the country. And so there's photos, there's information, there's contact information, and they will be involved in the process. I mean, at least to make initial contact sometimes. I mean, they're there to support deaf dogs and pet parents any way they can.
Is it deafdogsrock.com?
Yes, ma'am. Deafdogsrock.com.
I did see yesterday on the Facebook page, and I have 2 of them because Christine made them for me, these amazing necklaces, and I know she's selling them as part of Dog Awareness Week. So everybody hop on over to their Facebook page. You'll see them. You'll want one. And I think she has a limited amount. So, we want to help them in a great way. And you'll end up with a really fantastic necklace. Now,
they are limited edition because those are all handmade. And she made me an awesome one gave me at Blog Pause. And they're very personal. They include photos of the person's dog or things that are of interest to that person.
Yes.
And then, if that happens to be sold out, you can always just donate the money right there. Right. They also, sell T-shirts and other items. So there's lots of ways that you can support deaf dogs through Deaf Dogs Rock. Following my blog, following other people out there that are talking about deaf dogs.
Give us your blog address before we actually wrap up the show.
dogandhisboy.com.
Dogandhisboy.com, and you can find
everywhere. Dogandhisboy.com, dogandhisboy at Instagram, Pinterest. I've been working on, so you'll see a little bit more of me on Pinterest, Facebook. I'm starting a Tumblr. I haven't done Tumblr yet, but I'm just starting to do Tumblr.
I have one. I don't give it a lot of love, but I probably should at some point.
I just think so much of my work has become like short form content with like striking images that any sort of visual platform is really good way to increase awareness and share information about deaf dogs or some salty thing that I said,
I kind of like that. Well, I have to thank you for being such an amazing advocate for deaf dogs. You come with so much information that is so helpful, gives people hope, helps them have better relationships with their deaf dogs, and of course you support rescue. It's just you're just fabulous. We have to just fabulous.
Thank you so much.
It's great. And I want to say just a big thank you for doing this with us this morning, because of course you're just going to be our regular deaf dog guy. That's what you're going to be. You know what I hate on the keyboard is the fact that the D is next to the F when I'm typing deaf. Do you feel that way too?
Yeah, because deaf can easily become a different word.
It can, and I hit that so many times, putting stuff together for the show.
Yeah.
But deaf dogs do rock, and anyone that you listen in, definitely go over to the Instagram account and see those amazing pictures and follow and see what happened next and look out for the tour. So I want to say a big thank you to you, Bernard, and I'm going to close the show out this way. And it is, remember, you can help an animal in need. Either rescue, adopt, donate, volunteer, or share their information. Rescue your next family member. Replace the word shop with adopt. And be kind to all animals. Big thank you, Bernard. It's been a great interview. It's been just a great morning.
It's been awesome. I'm super excited. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And everybody else, it's Deaf Dog Awareness Week. Get involved in any way you can. Make a donation, buy a necklace, share the information, adopt a deaf dog, and we thank you for that. It's a great week to celebrate deaf dogs. I want to thank Jim, producer. Big thanks to Bernard, all the way from Miami. That's also fancy. And to you, the listeners, for being a part of the show every single week. Today, you've been listening to Vegas Rock Dog Radio, what it is all about, our lovely pets, people, and pop culture. I'm your host, Sam, the queen of rock and roll dogs, and always kiss your pets. Good morning and good night. I'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone.
Vegas Rock Dog Radio. Pets, people, pop culture.
Let's Talk Pets every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.